Thank you, Senator McCormick. Senator Kim.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you to all of you coming out here. A couple words I just heard that I think really just hit the nail on the head, and I love your reactions to it. When we're talking about all the different problems that we're facing with the FDA, the bureaucracy, or the workforce issues, I think the word that really hits it home is urgency. And I heard you use that. I heard you use that, Ms. Kennedy. I feel like that's really what we're talking about here is like we need a government that is moving at the speed of urgency that the parents are trying to save their kids, right? Like that we're struggling to understand what the actual purpose here is and the speed with which we need to move. And look, I got two boys. I got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. I would do anything for them. And I just like, how do we translate that into the urgency of a government trying to be responsive? And I think that's where some of the disconnect hits on so many levels. Mr. Campbell, you talked about it, used the word national security. I used to work in national security. I was in Afghanistan and Iraq and elsewhere. I saw this government move with urgency when they felt like lives were on the line. But why is it that we can't necessarily translate that to another circumstance where there are millions of lives on the line and people just don't have the time to wait for this? And so I think that that's really a purpose. How do we talk about this as a national security priority? It's the same reason we're trying to save lives abroad. It's the same reason we're trying to save lives here at home. Does that make sense to you, Ms. Kennedy? Am I kind of grasping the crux here of what we're trying to push for?
Yes, Senator, you absolutely are. And Congress has recognized this urgency in statute and has enabled the use of regulatory flexibilities, and that is what's reflected in the accelerated approval pathway and the use of surrogate outcome measures and biomarkers in clinical trial design in rare disease. What we're concerned about is that in many of these complete response letters, what we're seeing reflected is FDA, especially in one of the medical product centers, CBER, seems to be the trend that we're detecting backing away from a comfort level or use of the surrogate biomarkers. But what we've seen in rare disease is surrogates work. Surrogate biomarkers do save lives. We have more than 250 products that have been approved through the accelerated approval pathway, but fewer than 20% of those are for the non-oncologic, non-infectious disease, rare diseases, which means there is a distinction between what's happening in the rare community that's in this room and the broader rare community. So it's really important when we look at those statistics that we sort of look at what the different medical product centers are comfortable with and are doing. And that's why we know that the tools are available. We want to ensure that they're being utilized.
Mr. Campbell, I want to bring you in on this because you've talked about this at length, build off of what we just heard. How would an expanded use of adaptive trial designs or surrogate endpoints by the FDA lend itself to achieving better outcomes when it comes to rare disease approvals?
Yeah, I think the first step is just use what we have available to us, right? So if you look at oncology, I think in 2024, there are 8,000 different therapeutics in clinical trial design. That dwarfs the number in rare diseases today. And I think a large part of that is the much more welcoming use of accelerated approval and surrogate biomarkers. Our own product, Galafold, was approved on a surrogate biomarker. The competitor product, also Fabrazyme, was approved on a surrogate biomarker, and these things work. I get it. Rare diseases are biologically complex. It's very difficult to understand how long it's going to take. You can't do randomized control studies in the same way you can with broader disease populations. But when it's done right, as in the case of Fabrazyme, 10 years later, after using real-world evidence and a registry, they were able to confirm the original surrogate endpoint, and now it's a fully approved product. So for me, the tools are all there. It's really more, as we've discussed, consistency and using the tools that exist. If we were to, please.
I just want to jump in here at the end. I mean, the urgency on the trials and moving up forward on the approvals. But Mr. Campbell, I also want to raise another issue, which is just how long it often takes to build manufacturing facilities here in the United States. The level of slowness with the inspections themselves. So I want that urgency on the manufacturing side as well. What can you be showing us about the decision makings that manufacturers are going through, especially in terms of being able to build this and manufacture this here in America?
Here at home. Thank you so much for the opportunity to address that. So just by background and because we work with external manufacturers. As a small cap company, we don't have the capital to build our own manufacturing facilities, and we certainly don't have an environment to be able to do that. So we work outside the United States. It takes 3 to 5 years to build a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility for protein therapeutics. It takes another 1 to 2 years then to get that facility inspected. So you're talking 5 to 7 years from we want to do this to when it actually has medicine coming off the line for patients. So in my mind, it's mutually beneficial to all of us. So create incentives, and they don't have to be financial incentives. Help with permitting, help with inspections, give priority to inspections for homegrown manufacturing facilities, create an environment that's actually supportive of bringing manufacturing at home versus using, which is what we've seen over the last couple of years, more sticks to try to prevent, probably a more qualified person to speak to this, speaking in the background. But so let's use incentives instead of sticks to encourage that, because I think the United States ecosystem, the patients, all benefit from doing that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we've talked at length here in this committee about the benefits on so many levels of having that manufacturing here in America, the speed with which we can move, the capabilities. These are some very concrete things that I hope we can follow up on and really come up with a game plan here, because it's just, honestly, it's just pathetic that we're just not able to do this with a greater level of speed, given the skills and the talent and the resources of our country. We can and should be doing better. So thank you for holding this hearing today.